in mind, we will kick off. We do have the approval of the agenda before us. There is one item that Director Cole would like to add as for information, but she may speak to it, and that has to do with the District of Ucluelet copying us on a letter that they have or will be sending very quickly to the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure. So I see her nodding. So that would be the only alteration to the agenda that I'm aware of. Does anyone else have any anything to add? Oh, Penny, do you have no sound on your computer? Or it's an iPad. So is the volume up on your iPad? Oh, it says connecting to audio now. There we go. Okay, how about now? Oh.
Yay.
Okay, cool. All right.
Finally. Thank you. Sorry.
No worries. Though, no, it's good to have the chat there as well. So if anything happens technologically, I do have the chat up as well as the participants, and that will allow us to hopefully do things. If I'm not seeing you waving your hand to speak, you can also put something in the chat to everyone, and I'll try to get there. Okay. So that being said, we only have the one additional item to the agenda under 12A late items, a report from Director Cole on a letter to the Ministry of Transportation from the District of Ucluelet. Are there any other items, or would you like to move? Please, no. Director McNabb.
I'd move the agenda as amended.
Do we have a seconder?
Seconded.
Thank you, Director Coots. Okay, any further comments? Okay, seeing none, I will declare, oh wait, I can't, sorry. All those in favor? All opposed? All right, motion carried. Okay, thank you for that. Item 3 is declarations on our agenda. Does anyone have any conflicts of interest or gifts exceeding $250 in value? I would note that our dollar is going down in value, so some gifts may be worth more now. Seeing none, we'll move on to the item 4, adoption of minutes. 4A is the Board of Directors meeting dated March 11th, 2020.
Move adoption.
Thank you, Director McNabb.
Second.
Seconded by, I think that was Director Roberts. All right, thank you. Are there any comments, alterations, corrections? Seeing none. All those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Okay. That brings us to item 4B, the Committee of the Whole Financial Planning meeting dated March 11th, 2020.
So moved.
Thank you, Director
Second.
Roberts. Seconded by Director Shannon.
There.
All righty. Are there any comments? Seeing none. All those in favor? Motion carried. Okay, that brings us to the Special Board of Directors meeting dated March 31st, 2020.
Move adoption.
Thank you, Director McNabb.
Second.
Director Johnson, thank you. Any comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Okay, we have no petitions, delegations, or presentations. So that brings us to item 6, which is correspondence for action. First item is a request for a nominee for the Port Alberni Port Authority. Douglas, could you just take us over that quickly?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Port Authority has a committee for the purpose of identifying, advertising for, and interviewing possible board of director members, and there's some pretty strict rules that come with that. So I've acted on that, I think, since the fall of 2017, and it's just time for renewal if the board is interested in having me participate on that. It's not overly onerous, and I'd be pleased to do it if that's the board's wishes.
Dr. McNabb.
Yeah, I'd be interested in that if that's okay with the board.
Are you willing to take a step back, Mr. Holmes?
Oh, sorry,
Oh,
I didn't hear that.
Oh, okay.
If he
So,
wants to do it, that's fine with me.
okay.
I've got a lot to do right now.
Okay, thank you. Director Haggard, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to move that the Board of Directors reappoint Mr. Douglas Holmes, CAO, as the Regional District nominee on the Port Alberni Port Authority's Advisory Nominating Committee.
Seconded.
All right, thank you, Director Roberts. Coming in loud and clear, that's great. Okay, so are there any comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion carried. Okay. We can let Dave and Zorn know as soon as possible. Okay, that brings us to number 7, which is correspondence for information. So would anyone like to pull anything out?
The Dr. Jack,
Go ahead.
the regional district B, number B there, the regional district of Central Okanagan. The only kind of exception I take to that is they're looking for the province to put together a 911 like a service, and we already have one. So this request is already sort of in the works as well with the provincial government, so and the federal government, so that I don't think we really need to ask them. It's already about to happen, and the funding that would be derived would be going to support 911 services, both e-com and the designated services, and partly to offset the cost of the new technology that's required by the federal government. So it's already there. I thank them for the letter.
Okay. Are there any other items?
One comment, if I may, with regards to the last comment, that the regional district of Central Okanagan, their levy request is to be controlled by a separate board, and so I agree with the other director that in fact it almost seems to me to be redundant.
Thanks for that. Director Cote, please go ahead. And then Director Shannon.
Thank you. Page 31 on Ministry of Forest Lands, Natural Resource, Operations and Rural Development. So there's a grant for the regional airport for $10,000 and for a strategic economic development plan. So I'm just wondering, did staff apply for this, or did it come through the economic development officer?
Douglas, go ahead. Or Terry, you just appeared, so I assume you might answer it.
I can do that.
Okay, go ahead.
Go ahead, Terry.
So we applied, the board approved for us to apply for this back in the fall. It was actually part of the Rural Dividend Fund. Then the province announced that they weren't actually going to release the Rural Dividend Fund this year, and then have now changed their mind. So it is the a project that would be done with the advisory committee.
Okay, so that would be looking for economic development. Could we use that as part of our grand opening strategy?
The intent of the grant was to do like a strategic plan,
Study.
an economic development strategic plan
Okay,
of where we want to move. Yes, with the advisory committee and the board. Yeah.
okay, great. Thank you.
Director Shannon.
Thank you. My question / comment is also for item C. My question is if we've got a grant for this, which is great, did they make any comments or anything regarding our grant as it is with the airport, if we're looking at economic development and the restrictions that we currently have with it for just airport activities?
Go ahead, Douglas.
I don't think that they've made any comments with respect to the limitations tied to this grant award other than what's in the letter. From our point of view, we think it's important to get a strategy prepared for the airport that the board approves of, and then I think it's time to engage the province in terms of convincing them of the validity of that strategy and the benefit to the community and therefore to the province as well of undertaking the activities that strategy ultimately identifies, and then talk about how those activities are allowed or in the province's view maybe aren't allowed, and work through that.
Thank you.
Director McNabb.
On D, I was reading through the province's response on our request, and there must be a special course you have to take in order to write letters that actually say nothing, and appear to say something. But the one thing they have totally, absolutely missed is on the taxation on fire apparatus. I guess we should have been clearer that we were talking about fire trucks, because either they think we know nothing and they want us to go back and read all the regulations as to what's tax exempt and what's not. I mean, that's what they have auditors for. If we exempted it, they'd be telling us about it in a big hurry. But they've completely missed that what we want this particularly on is fire trucks. When you're exempt on fire uniforms, you're exempt on fire extinguisher. You up buy a fire extinguisher, it doesn't have TST on it. But a fire truck does. I mean, I just don't think it makes any sense. And I guess we have to reword this for another day and specifically say fire trucks, because they missed it. You know, the other letter with regards to the cell reception alternatives in rural areas, you know, that to write that letter, go around in a complete circle and come back to the beginning with saying nothing is a skill. So motion to receive the correspondence.
Thank you, Director McNabb. Do we have a seconder?
Second.
Thank you, Director Cote. Saw your hand go up. Are there any comments on the motion? Dr. Cote?
Oh, sorry, I was looking at the other resolutions that were forward, and the wireless connectivity in rural areas, which was endorsed, and just a little update. I've been sending emails to TELUS to asking them when they are going to co-locate with Rogers on their cell tower out at Sprout Lake. And apparently they need to secure a contract with Mosaic regarding access to the tower. So I think that's all that's holding them up at this point, but would be nice to hear more from them. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Director Cote. Any further comments, Director McNabb? Oh, you're muted, sorry.
I don't have a keyboard. So just further on the cell tower thing, another hurdle the province has put on this is all the cell towers are now taxed, provincially taxed, a property tax on a property tax basis, based on the revenue. So if they co-locate on that tower, Rogers is going to have to pay extra provincial property taxes as well, and it really is counterproductive, because the idea is to get better cellular reception sort of universally, and this is completely sort of going the opposite direction. It's restricting it instead of promoting it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you for that. Are there any other comments? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Okay, thank you. So just before we get to item 8, Director McNabb, should we send a counter letter to the item that you were talking about on 7B, the levy, or is that just a conversation we have later with the province?
No, I think we're okay with it. You know, sort of given the attention that gets the provincial government gives this sort of thing, I think we're fine.
Okay. Thank you for that. That brings me to item 8, which are requests for decisions and bylaws. So the first of which is 8A, Fayette and Lamarck, road water main upgrade. So go ahead.
So a question of staff on this is, do we have the ability to look at community benefit on this tender? I mean, the second bidder is a local bidder with local staff and no requirement to travel. I just don't know if we have legs to stand on to accept that versus this tender.
Mr. Chair, without getting into too much detail about specifics about the tender, if the board wants to get into certain parts of this, we may be well advised to go in camera to talk about that. But what I would say, generally speaking, is once the tender is out the door, then any opportunity to do anything but award it to the lowest compliant bid is very, very limited. So I think the opportunity to try to look for some sort of amenity from any of the bidders means that we should have asked it for all of them from the beginning. By way of reminder, the board has got us researching the ability to do strategic procurement so that the benefits to the community can be identified not just in a very good price, but also other benefits that could be attained through the bidding process.
So, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
I would move that the Albany-Claycott Regional District Board of Directors award the Fayette and Lamarck Road water main upgrade to, Luca Construction, Inc. for the tender price of, it's not really a tender price, it's actually a pretty big price, $755,698.17, including GST.
Do we have a seconder?
Second.
Thank you, Director Oh, that was Director Johnson's voice, but I was looking at Director Minions. Okay, that's Director Johnson. Okay. Do you have follow-up, Dr. McNabb, or a question? The only question I have is how to pronounce that. I thought it was Loiko for a minute, but maybe that's too Polish. Okay. Are there any comments? Seeing none. Oh, sorry, Dr. Shannon, go ahead.
Thank you. I just wanted to echo basically Director McNabb's comments on, I know we, like, obviously following Doug's follow-up, we're a little restricted, but it would have been nice to see this, especially now going to a local company in the Valley.
Okay, thank you for that. Are there any further comments? Director Cole?
Yeah, just to concur with that, just to add the other point, of course, with no travel and also supporting somebody local and less people moving around the world, especially in the short term, is just that added little, if it was ever timely to maybe keep things super, super local, now would be the time. That's all.
Okay, I'll try to ensure that I mention this at the next SSPI meeting, the Social Procurement Initiative. Director Haggard.
Oh, I was just going to suggest that. I think that this is the time to move forward and get the staff to compile a social procurement policy. So when we do award contracts to out-of-town contractors, that we do get some benefit out of it. They just don't take their money and run. They do leave something for the community. Thank you.
So I think the ACRD does send someone, including me, to these meetings, or at least to keep track of them as they progress. So that's the for people who don't know or maybe watching this later, the SSPI is a social procurement initiative. I don't know what the first S is though, Josie. Oh, you're muted.
Spacebar is not working.
There we
Spacebar. It is the Coastal Community Social Procurement Initiative. And yes, the ACRD is a member of the initiative, and Terry has attended some of the trainings already. And I think we've discussed this in the past at the board table around the fact that it's just going to take a little bit of time to learn and adopt those procedures. And I know Terry is really interested and keen, and as is Doug, and we will get there. So good points. Thank you.
Okay. Dr. Beckett, you had your hand up.
Yes, thank you. How critical is the timing with respect to this project? What's the window look like? And I come back to the point that was made, and I can't remember which director made it, but the travel and people moving from one community to another community to facilitate this contract.
Douglas, go ahead, or call upon anyone.
With respect to the urgency of this, I'm not entirely sure, other than to say earlier in the construction season is usually better. Right now, there's less traffic and less interference. There's a fair bit of construction going around on the island still, and I think in lots of ways that's still a really, really good thing, because to the extent that construction projects are able to accomplish the distancing of their workers and transfer material safely, if they're doing that successfully, then at least we still have some economic activity going on to support all of the government initiatives that are happening at this time. With respect to the urgency for our water utility specifically, and this particular project, in terms of its urgency, perhaps I could ask Rob to comment on that, please.
Hello. Yeah, so the reason why we went out to tender now was, like Doug said, is to try and get good pricing at the beginning of the year. These two projects have been noted as the highest priority through our asset management program. And so we're looking to move ahead with that. In terms of timelines, the contractor has stated that they can achieve the work within 160 calendar days. So that's kind of the time frame that we're looking at in terms of completion. And I think I'll leave it there.
Okay. Any follow-up, Dr. McNabb?
Yeah, it's just that one of the other issues that these two projects are going to benefit the district in is that we have a very significant water loss situation in Beaver Creek, and it's considered that these two areas are a major contributor to that leakage. And so it's something that financially is a good thing to get done right away, because it's sort of water under the bridge past that. But so I think it should be carried out the way it's intended. I just really regret that we don't have that social procurement opportunity, or that we maybe in even the near contracts that we've got coming, if we could actually try to write some social procurement language into them, so that we're looking at the community benefit as well. I mean, part of the funding is community works funding, and the part of the concept is to create work within the community. So no, that's it. Thanks.
Thanks. That's a very good point. It was spoken about at the budget meeting that we're keeping a lot of our infrastructure projects because we hope to stimulate the economy. And I think the economy we're talking about is the local economy. So I can see that this is something that may move up in our priority list moving ahead. Okay. Are there any other comments in regards to this? It was moved by Director McNabb and seconded by Director Johnson. Director Roberts, please go ahead.
Yeah, I appreciate the comments by Director McNabb. it's I reviewed the policy, and I reviewed the comments by the engineering firm, and they in fact are the ones that made the recommendation to go with Luco Construction. Luco Construction, from reading the comments that were in there, is basically a local company. While they're in Qualicum Beach, it's not the other side of the world. And I agree with Director McNabb and the comments by Rob that in fact, you know, we're concerned about losing water in that area. And I think the sooner this gets going, the better it's going to be. And I think the social procurement policy is something clearly that we have to clearly define and look at again. And perhaps it can be mentioned to the engineering firms as well that that's one of the directions that we're thinking about going. And thank you for that.
Great, thank you. So I think we're in good shape to move on. I'm wondering if I missed anyone, sorry. Okay, seeing none. That brings us to all those in favor. All opposed. Okay, motion carried. Yeah, I saw that, Director Coots. Okay. That brings us to the request for decision regarding late payment penalties. This sounds like something that that Terry will be speaking to, but Douglas, I'll defer to your judgment there.
You're quite right, Mr. Chair. Terry, if you wouldn't mind taking us through that. Thank you.
Okay, it was actually Rob that wrote this report, as we've had a lot of discussion about this over the last couple of weeks. So we've had a lot of questions phoned in regarding the water bills and when they're going to be sent out, and is there going to be penalties. And so staff are comfortable with waiving the 2% penalty at this time. Their water bills are actually given 3 months to pay every quarter anyways, so we don't have a 30-day turnaround, but we would still recommend that we waive the 2% penalty. With the landfill tipping fees, the collection is a little bit more of a concern from a staff perspective, because with water, we transfer to taxes for collection. With the commercial tipping fee accounts, we close their accounts down at the landfill, but then our only recourse to actually get money back is to send them to collections, which puts the cost back onto the local taxpayers. So that is why we brought that one forward. And then with the airport leases, there's numerous airport leases at both the AV regional airport as well as the Long Beach airport that have penalty clauses in there as well. And we just thought, to be consistent, it would be good to address those at this time.
Okay, thank you very much. Any comments? We do have 3 separate motions, so we'll keep those separate, I think. Director McNabb?
I would move that the Alberni-Claycourt Regional District Board of Directors direct staff not to apply a 2% penalty to the overdue water payments for the next 3 months. So I'm not quite sure if we actually have to name those months in order to be kind of.
Because our meeting's being held now, I think it's just calculated from the date of the meeting, so it should be
Okay. So are we looking at June, July, August, or are we looking at April, May, June?
So it would go, the first month would be from tomorrow to May, and then May
April,
to June.
May, and June.
Yeah.
I think we should name that.
Okay.
Because otherwise they might be, by the time this actually sort of hits the deck, we could be talking about June, July, August.
Do you just want to say till the end of June then? And then just completely forget
well, April, May, June, yes. To
Okay.
June 30, April, May, 31?
I don't know. Okay. But yeah.
The end of June.
The end of June.
Last day of June of 2020.
Okay, do we have a seconder? So, thank you, Director Cole. I wasn't sure if you had a comment or wanted a second. So, Director Haggard, did you have a comment, or did you just want to
I
move
was
the
going to
motion?
speak on the next motion, so I'll just wait and reserve my comment till then.
Okay. Okay, on this first motion, are there any comments? Seeing none. All those in favor? Okay, motion carried. Okay, Director Haggard, do you want to speak to the second motion, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just going to say that I thought 30 days was a little bit harsh. I was wondering if we could amend that to 60 days just to give our local contractors a little bit more leeway in paying off their invoices.
Director McNabb, and then we'll go to Rob right after.
Yeah, I mean, my take on this is all of these tippers are basically paid. I mean, the majority of it is from the city of Port Alberni and from regional district areas that have collection. So I'm kind of thinking that most of this is going to be the small contributors to the system that might have some issues with accounts receivable, but
I wasn't able to log on
the bigger
to my
ones are not. So I don't know.
so I'm back
I don't know if we need two or just stick with the way it's worded.
You did.
Hey, Dave, can you mute your line, please?
My office?
Take it.
Mute your microphone, Dave. Okay. And also, I'd like to acknowledge that Dave Lobichar is here from the Peak. Okay.
Oh, sorry about that. I got to turn off my. I didn't know I was not muted. Sorry, guys.
No worries. Okay, so with that, Rob, can you weigh in, and then we'll go to Director Minions.
Sure. So the rationale for the 30 days was to try and manage the potential for some of these commercial haulers if they went out of business, and that, like Terry said, we don't have a way to necessarily collect the money. It'll go to collections. Moving to a 60-day time period, I don't think it's a problem. I don't know, Terry, if you wanted to comment whether we have some folks that we're worried about now, but also the comment is valid that the waste system seems to be still operating as usual. But again, I don't have a good pulse on the private folks. Other than that, as far as I know, all the contractors are still working.
I'll just add that it is a significant dollar value in a month. So some of them are tipping up to $30,000 in a month, but I also do not have a problem with the 60 days.
Okay. Okay, Director Minions.
Thank you. I was just going to speak in support of the 60 days as well. Although, you know, I would be fine as well to reassess after 30 days and kind of, you know, see where we're at. I think like any business, while, you know, things might be still operating, there's probably a significant drop in revenues coming. And just changes that local contractors will have to deal with. So I'm supportive of either 30 or 60 at this point. I think this is a great initiative.
Okay. Any further comments? I may have missed you. Sorry. So how many days? Dr. McNabb.
So I would make a motion that we concur with this recommended motion and reassess it at the end of next month.
Okay, let's just make sure that we put it on the agenda for next month then, Douglas.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Dr. Minions. Any further comments? Seeing none. All those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Okay, that brings us to the third recommended motion is the do not apply a 2% penalty to overdue lease payments at the airport for the next 3 months. Dr. Roberts?
Yes, I would like to move that the ACRD Board of Directors direct staff to not apply a 2% penalty to overdue airport lease payments for the next 3 months.
I will second, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Dr. Coots. Any further comments? Dr. Haggard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just wondering if any of the tenants have asked for any deferrals in their rents for the next 3 months.
Go ahead, Terry.
Yes, we have received one.
Okay. And are we going to be dealing with that at a meeting or?
Basically, we just thought we'd bring the waiving of the penalty to them and to the board. And then if they choose to take the 3 months to pay, then that is their option at this time. They haven't actually asked to have like relief from their lease payment, just for it to be deferred.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I have Director Shannon, and did I miss anyone else? Thanks. Go ahead, Director Shannon.
Thank you. Just a point for consistency's sake, if we change the first one to say April, May, and June, should we not do that with this motion as well?
That's a good point. I think that's all right. Director Roberts, is that okay?
That sounds totally appropriate. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Director Coots. I saw the thumbs up. Okay, so we'll just do that friendly amendment just like that. Are there any other comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Okay. That brings us to item C, which are the requests for decisions regarding the open burning regulations. So I think this is Alex or Rob. So Douglas, am I correct?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll ask Mike Erg to start with this one, and then he can pass it to Alex as appropriate. Thank you very much.
Hi, just a bit of quick background. So staff's recommending that the board adopt these two bylaws. Staff were originally directed to hold open houses before the bylaws were adopted. In the staff report, we touch on that and talk about holding the open houses, in the future when we're able to have those types of meetings. Given the public health concern about wood burning, we felt it was appropriate to bring these bylaws to the board to consider, and also there's some recommendations for making some amendments to the open burning bylaw so that they reflect the current provincial regulations. And this was done in consultation with the Ministry of Environment and the public or island health representatives on the Air Quality Council. And I would note that at this point in time, we do have limited ability to enforce this as we don't have our ticketing bylaw in place yet. And that's something that we would include this in the ticketing bylaw that we'll be bringing to the board in the future. But also, I think it's important, given the concerns that have been raised by the public health officer around burning and the impact it could have on the community, if people get COVID-19. So, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Mike, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I can hear you, Director Bodner. I have Director Roberts first,
okay.
And then Director
Sorry.
McNabb. Okay, I'm going to write this all down. Okay, Roberts, McNabb, Bodner, Dr. Cote. Did I miss anyone? Oh, Dr. Cole. And
So
Dr. Shannon. Okay, go ahead, Dr. Roberts. Sorry.
So through the chair to Manager Erg, the question that I have with regards to the solid burning appliances, what is that effect going to have on people that have wood fireplaces? And they're probably unrestricted as far as burning is concerned. I note that in the comments that up until 2023, you are given that time to change out your appliance that is CSA approved, or God forbid the US EPA standard, I guess if they're purchased in the States. But my concern is that people that have homes with open fireplaces that can burn freely, and probably during the winter months, which other than for heat, how can we solve that problem, or is it solvable? Thank you.
And I don't know if it is solvable. Fireplaces really would just be used for their aesthetic, and with limited ability for heating. We do also do wood stove inspections, and then following the lead for what other places have done, and this is really the recommendations from the health officer. So I don't think we can require fireplaces to be removed. But it would, the wood stove bylaw would improve the efficiency significantly by using the the new standards versus some of the old wood stoves that exist out there.
And I appreciate that. It's going to be a monumental task, but I think the concept of having a public information campaign and having open houses for the communities that would be involved, I think is really paramount.
Thank you. So that brings us to Director McNabb and then Director Bodner.
So I'd just like to say that this is a culmination of 3 directors' terms on the Air Quality Council. We've all been promising this for many years, and so I'm glad that we finally have it on the table, even though it may not be perfect. It's certainly a place that we need to get it in place, and we can modify it as needs arise. But it's something the community has been asking for a very long time, and we finally got it on paper. And so let's get our hands in the air, support it, and get on with our lives.
Thank you, Director McNabb. I have Director Bodner and then Director Cote.
Yes, I certainly am in favor of echoing what Director McNabb has said. I understand, and I was just wondering, are we going to break these down into 3 separate sections so I have something to say about the solid fuel burning appliance and also something about the outdoor burning smoke control?
So if the question is, each recommendation needs to be should be a separate resolution of the board, would be my recommendation.
Okay, following up on that, then I just wanted to know, for the people who already have wood burning stoves that are not up to standard, how are we going to monitor the use of this and stay on top of that? Because there may be things in place where people are not going to be getting a new stove. So how are we going to monitor that?
We offer wood stove inspections as part of the building inspection service, and a lot of insurance companies require periodic inspections, and so we would provide the information, but then also note which stoves meet and do not meet the standards. So we'd have the ability that way. And also information for people. And then for new builds, or renovations where we're doing other inspections and a wood stove's being installed, we would also capture it at that time.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, next up I have Directors Cote and then Cole.
Thank you. The way that this bylaw is written, it says that may enter to inspect any premise. So it doesn't say that it's adjoining another inspection or whatever. So I kind of have a feeling that there would be a pushback from the community for that type of wording, because really our bylaws officer inspectors are not allowed to just enter into anybody's home premise to do an inspection on their wood burner. So I have some reservation on that wording. Also, I agree. I think that we really do need to pick option 3, which would be to seek more public input. I think that putting this in place, the sooner the better, is great. But this process was supposed to have public input as part of the process. And I don't feel comfortable about just pushing it through. But I do think because of the position that the regional district is in right now for not being able to hold public hearings, I think that we do have other options though. So our official ACRD channels are email, mail, snail mail, telephone. If we could get some information back from the public on this bylaw, I'd feel a lot better passing it that way, having that input from the public. But yeah, I'm not happy about that. And also one more thing, it doesn't seem feasible to be putting a bylaw in place that we have no way to enforce. I would say that looking around myself, a lot of these fires happen on weekends and evenings, and we have no bylaw enforcement at those times. And for anything that takes 2 to 3 hours a round trip is wasted funds, in my consideration. So I think that it needs a bit of tweaking and a little bit of public input. Thanks.
Thank you. That brings us to Directors Cole and then Shannon and then Director Minion.
I am looking at this. I'm looking at the public information campaign portion on the report here. And I'm just wondering what kind of reach this has to something or impact it has on something like the highway construction stump burning thing that's been going on despite the burn bans from the province and the health officers' recommendations, etc. Through the chair to the staff.
Yeah, so the provincial regulations would apply. Our bylaw, would mirror whatever the provincial orders were. I'd have to look at the details as far as if this bylaw was in place, would it apply to the construction, because it's a provincial initiative paid for and overseen by the province. So in general, we don't have the ability to regulate the provincial or federal government, if they own the land.
Okay, do you have a follow-up, Dr. Cole?
Yeah, so sorry, on that topic then, who is responsible if the province has said that there can't be this, stump burning can't be going, we can't be doing anything except the campfires for cooking. If that's the case, then who is responsible if something is happening in the ACRD, even though the province has said don't do it, and we're talking about different bylaws about how that would be enforced once we can enforce it. And I guess I just thought maybe now that we're on this topic, I would insert the question of what can be done about that.
Go ahead.
So it's Mike. I mean, we can certainly, inform the province, let them know that there's concerns. On that specific question, I need to do a little bit more research to see, how it would apply. So, we've built in exemptions, for example, for things like forestry burning, because that's regulated by the Ministry of Forests, as well as burning on agricultural land, because that's exempt from some of our bylaws if it's on agricultural land reserve.
So it might be an MOT thing again as well, or some sort of special permit for them to do, like forestry would have, I guess.
It could be. Yeah, sorry, I don't have the answer to that question.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Director Beckett, did you have your hand up? No? Okay. Okay, I have Director Shannon and then Director Minions and Director Bodner.
Thank you. Before I get to my comments on the first motion we have in front of us regarding solid fuel burning, would you not contact the Conservation Officer Service if there was fires going that the province is supposed to be regulating? Just through the chair to staff? Or is that
yes.
completely different?
Yeah, so if we've been getting complaints, we direct them both through the RAP line, and in some instances, we've contacted the ministry staff.
Okay, awesome, thanks. Okay, so I have quite a few comments on these regulations. If we're gonna go through them one by one, I will just start with my comments, Chair Jack, just regarding solid fuel burning appliances right now, and then save my other comments for when we're in the other motions later, if that's what you'd prefer. I can't hear you. You're muted, John.
I was typing, so
Sorry.
no, it's fine. So yeah, I think it's fine to speak to things specific to each motion,
Okay.
but if you have any general comments, now would be the time, I think.
Okay, thank you. So general comments, I don't agree with putting this forward without public input. I think that with any bylaw, I think that it's our due diligence to do it. I appreciate and realize that with COVID-19, there are some uncertainties right now, but I think the province is noticing that and taking action to help with that. And I don't want to push something through without public input because I think it's wrong, just to be blunt. I don't agree with it. I think we need to go through our proper process, and even if that public input looks different than what we would normally do, I think we have to give that opportunity. I know that Director Cote mentioned it as well, because if we don't have the ability to enforce either, I think it's kind of moot almost, in a sense. Those are my general comments for that. I would agree with the recommendation of course I can't find it in front of me, of holding off on adopting the bylaw until the public inputs happened. I just think that the backlash that we would get for adopting and then going and doing education would just be ugly. And then specific to the first motion that we have in front of us regarding the solid fuel burning appliances, I have concerns from an agricultural standpoint with the 1030 bylaw as potential barriers for some farmers, because some producers, farmers like I know Arrowvale Campground and stuff, if you're processing some of your stuff like sap for maple syrup, a lot of them have modified wood stoves or metal containers that they're doing this in. And if they've built a sugar shack or another structure, if it's not fully enclosed or a lean-to or something, I just think that this puts them in a situation where they would get blanketed under this. And I know that's not the intent because I have talked to staff about this. And then the recommendation that I received was that if we could hold off on 1030 so staff can come up with amending our 1030 to include a normal farm practices similar to the other one. So they can present the amended bylaw in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. So next up I have Dr. Minions and then Dr. Bodner. Is there anyone else? Director Cote, thank you. And then Director Beckett.
Thank you. I want to speak generally very strongly in favor of moving forward, in this general direction. And I understand the concerns around the lack of ability to have normal public engagement. I also think that it's worth noting that traditional public engagement is not always the most effective form of public engagement. There are ways that we can effectively engage our community in a really meaningful way without holding an open house that 10 people might show up to and everybody else doesn't know that we did this until they get a call from bylaw enforcement anyways. I do understand the concerns though about moving forward with adoption prior to going through some kind of campaign. And I think especially when there is not a strong enforcement plan in place, it doesn't necessarily make a lot of difference if we have adopted a bylaw, if we're not going to go out and enforce it anyways. It's about the public education that we're doing you know, I would put the actual adoption of the bylaw at equal importance to just really letting people know that we're doing this and letting people know what the new standards are. So I think we could be just as effective holding off a little bit so that we can do a thorough public engagement, that this is, you know, going to be the new standard of what's expected of you, and this is what we're thinking, and we want to hear your input. Than if we were to pass it today. I think it's more about telling people that you know, we're going in this direction, that this is the expectation. And I just want to share that I was on the I was the city liaison for the Air Quality Council when I was first elected to council. And so it was about 5 years ago that the city implemented our backyard burning ban or outdoor burning ban, with the exception, of course, of cooking and campfire small fires. And it was difficult at first, but through a lot of public engagement, it really has become commonplace and best practice. And I haven't seen anyone get upset or complain about it literally in years. So it wasn't the really big deal that we thought it might be. I do recognize that in the regional district, there's more challenges around different types of land uses, and it might be a bit more of a complex issue. But I think it's really important to take a leadership role and show that we're moving forward with this, and make sure that we really inform the public in a super effective way. So thank you.
Thanks. Okay, I have Directors Bodner and then Cote and then Beckett. So, Director Bodner, please go ahead.
Yes, thank you. With all due respect to Mayor Minions, I understand from my constituents that this has been tossed around for a matter of even years, and there's a lot of frustration out there with these open burning bylaws, and people really want some kind of direction, something that could be in place now. And this is what feedback I'm getting, and to have it reviewed perhaps again in the fall, so that they have something to go back on. So it's all nice to say, well, we're doing the best we can, but if this has been going on for a long time, then maybe it's time to put something into place now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I have Directors Cote and then Beckett.
Thanks. I just want to comment on what Director Shannon said about the burning for the maple syrup. I'm wondering if that would be considered to be a farm use, which I believe is allowed. Could staff maybe comment on that? Thanks.
Go ahead, Mike.
That's considered processing, and in some instances that's not considered a primary farm use. So for instance, farm use for land clearing, you know, is exempt. I would have to look at I think some of the instances where it's going to be captured is for the wood burning appliance as well. So, or sorry, the wood burning appliance, the heating. So.
Okay, so I have Directors Beckett and then McNabb and then Shannon next.
Thank you. I think Dr. McNabb identified historically the number of directors that have sat on the Air Quality Council. So this has a long history of inaction, and it is time to act on it. And I think that the COVID-19 aside, this is all about health and pollution. And it's time that we show that leadership. I am fully supportive in moving forward, recognizing that there is an educational piece component to being successful that we're going to have to adopt and accept, and not focus so much on bylaw initially.
Okay. Thank you. I have Director McNabb next. Oh, you're muted again. Sorry.
Damn thing.
Yeah.
So I think what we should be doing at this time is moving this to a point where we can actually put it out to public engagement. So that would be likely to a third reading and all of this stuff. And so on a staff basis, I don't know how they want to carry that through, but I see some of these are looking like they want them to be adopted like the first one. Solid fuel. I mean, we could probably adopt that because it's provincial. I think it's provincial law anyhow in 2023. So that and the bottom where it says the outdoor burning portion of it, if we just leave that to a third reading and then go to public engagement and perhaps bring it back as quickly as possible from public engagement, I think that's kind of the logical flow on this. I don't know what you think, Chair Jack.
So I think I will ask about where the public engagement is originally meant to sit in the process here. I thought it was supposed to be between second and third, but Mike, if you could enlighten me, just to reminder. Yeah.
I can just add a little bit. So there's no public hearing requirement. There's no statutory public hearing requirement to adopt these bylaws. The board can adopt them. So previously, last year, the bylaws were taken to third reading, and we were going to do public engagement, which hasn't happened yet. There is in the staff report and in the board agenda on the front page, the solid fuel burning appliance bylaw. The board could adopt it now if they wish. From the time the board gave third reading to the outdoor burning smoke control bylaw, R 1032, the province made some changes to their open burning bylaw. So Alex in his report and in the bylaws that are presented made some changes so that this bylaw would work better with the new provincial open burning regulations. So that's the reason that there's a recommendation to rescind third reading and then make the amendments, proceed with third reading, and then proceed to adoption. So it's the board's decision or call as far as how far they wish to go. We can go ahead with adoption of both of these bylaws and do the public information, or the board could make the amendments to the outdoor burning smoke control bylaw, R 1032, leave it at third reading, and we could do some public engagement before bringing it back for adoption. So that's up to the board to choose how they wish to proceed.
Go ahead, Dr. McNabb.
So I would move that the regional district, Alberni Clayoquot Regional District, I think that's the way it works, not the other way. Solid fuel burning appliance emission regulation bylaw number R1030 2019 be adopted.
I second that.
Seconded by Director Beckett. Okay, comments. Director Shannon and then Director Cote.
Thank you, Chair Jack. This is one that I would like to see amended before it's adopted. I was speaking with Alex about this one, and this is the one where I have concerns about producers who have older stoves or jerry-rigged stoves that they're using for production, because the information that I understood from Alex was even if this bylaw would apply to burning appliances located within a building for space heating, water heating, or similar uses. This would encompass any stove located within a building such as a sugar shack, barn, etc. These producers would need to replace existing stoves by July 2023. So Alex's recommendation was that we have the option of amending this bylaw to include some normal farm practices to exclude some of these producers, and then give staff time to work on that and then bring it back to us. So I'm not in favor of adopting the bylaw as it is right now for our 1030.
Thank you. Director Cote.
Thanks. I agree with Director Shannon. At this time, I'm not willing to adopt this. I think it needs more work, and I think it needs a little bit of public input, no matter if it's just a new way of doing work, getting that input from the public. I think that there's no rush. There is no way to implement without the ticketing. In reality, nobody's going to be driving 3 to 4 hours. So Banfield and Long Beach directors, unless they have some kind of contract within their communities on being able to adhere to some kind of enforcement regarding this bylaw, I don't think that they really are going to gain anything by passing that right now. The directors, this has been going on for years, and we want to do it right. Why do something that is not done in a correct, proper manner? After all this time, I do not feel at all comfortable with rushing things through. I do agree that we need to get some kind of policy in place and bylaws, but this is not the right way to do it. Thanks.
Thank you, Director Cote. So I think I'll just, before I ask the question with a capital Q, I'll ask a question. Are we comfortable holding off on this until then, or do we want to move forward? And I'll start with Director McNabb because he moved the motion.
Well, I mean, I certainly think that we need to move forward. This first portion of this bylaw, it's my understanding that in 2023, all wood stoves will have to meet that standard anyhow. So, and as Mr. Erg has said, the Sugar Shack thing is a production base, farm use that would not be affected by this. You know, I mean, we've been doing this for, I think the first time I sat on that board was 7 years ago, and on the Air Quality Committee. And the community's been asking for this in every district to get something in place that we could control A, wood stoves, and B, outdoor burning. So this is, if we keep trying to leave this till we fix every problem with it, the landscape's changing as we go along. I mean, the provincial government just put a bunch of new regulations in their outdoor burning, which this incorporates. We'll leave this for another 3 months. Some federal government will come along and say, hey, no, we want this to be in it. So we need to have a baseline. And I mean, I'm totally in favor. We're speaking of this first section of this bylaw. I can't see any reason why we shouldn't move that forward at all.
Okay, thank you with that. So with that in mind, are there any other comments? Dr. Shannon?
Thank you. Then I'm just going to look for clarification from staff, because the email that I have from staff says that this bylaw would create potential barriers for farmers because it would encompass any stove located within a building, sugar shack, barn, etc. So from my understanding, that it would not be exempt just because it's on ALR. It would be under it because it's in a building.
Okay. I think my question for that with barns and sugar shacks and that sort of thing, the definition on page 49 of solid fuel burning appliance and even certified appliance is for the purpose of heating water or space heating those buildings. So a sugar shack, the heating of the building is just ancillary to that. So am I reading that incorrectly when it comes to those kind of non-heating the building, non-heating water in the building? Are those exempt, or would they apply, or is that one of those kind of cloudy areas? Go ahead, Mike.
Okay. Yeah. So I think what Director Shannon's referring to is is the boiling sap, which is boiling water. So it could be captured in that.
Okay, that bothers me because sap is not water. But yeah, okay. Yeah, Dr. Shannon, did you have a follow up there?
Essentially that's still that I'm not in favor of it as it stands because of that, because there could be barriers to farmers and local producers that I would like to see it deferred to include some normal farm practices to be amended to make sure that we're not hindering those people in the valley that are doing that because of the bylaw.
Okay. So I think it comes down to, I'm going to call the capital Q question now. I think it just comes down to if you'd vote in opposition to this motion then. Okay, so the first motion was moved by Director McNabb and seconded by Director Beckett. So all of those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4. 5. So I have 5, Wendy. How many do you have? 1, 2.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. I also count 5 in favor.
All right. And all of those opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So motion defeated. Defeated? Is that the word? Yeah, okay. Thank you, Director Osborne.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Defeated.
Okay. Okay, Director McNabb, you had a comment?
So having that accomplished, what we need to do is make a motion to staff take this and revise it to include the farm production systems and bring it back. So I would move that.
Okay, thank you, Director McNabb. Seconded by Director Shannon. Okay, is that also comment as well? No? Okay.
No, I can't. Thank you. And again, in general, with the process of public input on that, but I really strongly feel like I want that agriculture aspect of it included. So thank you.
Okay, so it's moved by Director McNabb, seconded by Director Shannon. Are there any comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion carried. Okay, so that brings us to the other ones. How do we want to approach that, Director McNabb?
So the only problem I see here is if we repeal these bylaws that are in place, we're going to stand with no bylaws in place. Yeah. So my comment would be to give third reading to the outdoor smoke burning bylaw and then leave it at that and have the public engagement portion movement afterwards. I need staff's direction there whether or not that would be the correct way to proceed with that, because we don't want to repeal the ones we've got. We'd end up with no law.
That's right, Mike.
Yes. So item 2 in the recommendations is only repealing third reading of the bylaw. So currently the bylaw has third reading. To make any amendments, the appropriate way to do that would be to repeal third reading, and then so you want to make motions 2 through 5. So then we would be at third reading with the of bylaw R1032 with the changes made, so it mirrors the current provincial regulations better, and then if the directors
so
2 through 4, not 5. 5's adoption.
Okay.
and then give staff direction to do some public engagement and send information out.
Okay, so 2 through 4, and then we stop short of adoption. And then if we learn anything or want to make any changes based on public input or further research or whatever, then we would do so as an amendment to third reading.
Yes.
And then adopt. Okay, so we would still have the ability to do that. So adoption is basically just, or Yeah, pseudo third reading. Okay. So with that in mind, is everyone comfortable moving to that point then? And I will note that your child's appearance on your screen, Director Coots, really seemed like a Star Trek security officer in the red shirt and everything. So that's perfect. Okay. So we will do the 2, 3, and 4. I think that will make sense. And I scratched them all out, but I can still read them. But would anyone like to move that? Go ahead, Director McNabb. 2,
3, 4. Okay, so I'll make an attempt at this. I'm not quite sure I understand this protocol, but we'll do it. I've moved that the third reading of Alberni-Clayquot outdoor burning smoke control regulation bylaw number R1032 2019 be repealed.
Okay, so that's moved by Director McNabb. Do we have a seconder? All right, thank you, Director Roberts. Okay, and then any further comment? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion carried.
And I would move that Alberni-Clayquot Regional District outdoor burning smoke control regulation bylaw number R1032 2019 be amended as presented.
So that's what's in the report.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Director Beckett. Further comment? Seeing none, all those in favor? Okay. All opposed? Motion carried. Okay.
I would move that the Alberni-Clayquot Regional District outdoor burning bylaw, burning smoke control regulation bylaw R1032 2019 be given third reading as amended.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Director Beckett. Any further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Oh, sorry, go ahead, Director Cote.
Thank you. So this is pushing this through then, by the looks of it, or are we?
So we're going to stop just short of adoption.
No.
So it's not. Okay. So in the event that there's any changes we want to adopt through public hearing or
Okay.
just engagement, we can do so by just amending this third reading that we're passing, and then it doesn't become effective until we adopt it.
So should there not be something in here that says that we're going to seek public input?
That's the very last recommended motion in the agenda, but not in the report, I think. Oh, no, it's in there too. And it's number 6 in the report on page 44.
But I don't want to adopt it. So we'll skip number 5?
Yeah, we skipped number 5. And I think that's
Okay.
what I just did across everyone.
Okay, I just didn't want it to be left out of number 4 if it needed to be there.
No, it's a good point of
Okay.
order. Make sure we're doing it right. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Any further comments? Okay, all those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Okay.
So the next one, I'm not quite sure what it should look like, but I'll put something forward there. I would move that the Board of Directors direct staff to engage the public with regards to bylaw R132 2019 in any appropriate methods.
Do we want to continue to keep the Air Quality Council involved too? We might as well. It's in the recommendation.
Yeah, well, they're part of the public, so.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Good point. Are there any seconds? All right. Director Roberts, thank you. Any further comments? Dr. Bodner, please go ahead.
I just have a question. When we're talking about engaging in public information, how far away do we see that being done?
That's a good point. Thank you.
Here we go again.
Yeah, Mike?
Yeah, so I don't have an exact answer to that. We will, as staff, sit down with Doug. I'll sit down with Doug and Alex, and we'll come up with a strategy, and we'll keep the board informed, and provide information before we start sending it out. But I anticipate some sort of mail out and some information on our website with an opportunity to respond to a designated email. So we'll bring that information back to the board.
So it's fair to assume we'll get a report on the strategy moving ahead on the 22nd or something.
We will try and get something together for that meeting. Yes.
Yeah. Fair enough. Any follow-up? Any further comments? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor? Motion carried. That's everyone. Okay, this is normally where I tell the non-electoral area directors to not leave, but you can't, so that's fine. That brings us to item 9.1A. It's a temporary use permit application for Sprout Lake. So, Mike, if you take it away.
Yeah, so at a previous board meeting, the board had considered this. There were some letters, 2 letters received from the public, and there were some concerns about the washrooms. So I was deferred till this meeting. Staff have contacted the owner, and as a temporary measure, if this is approved, the owner would have temporary washrooms adjacent to the mini golf, so that people would not have to walk across the road. And as a long-term strategy, they would be looking at constructing a washroom, a permanent washroom on site as well, so people don't have to cross the road. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Director Cote.
Thank you. So there was a letter attached in the agenda as well that identifies an environmental assessment regarding the birds sanctuary that's right next to, and just wondered if the information that was provided covers that to staff, please.
Sure, certainly. So this property is in a development permit area adjacent to the lake and the wetland, the end of the lake there. And so if any construction is going to happen or land clearing in the development permit area, the owner would be required to submit a development permit, which would include make a development permit application, which includes a biologist report. So it's really going to depend on exactly how they want to site the mini golf.
Okay. All right. Thanks. So if I could carry on then.
Yeah, go ahead.
At this moment, I'd like to recommend that the Board of Directors issue temporary use permit TUP 19024.
Do we have a seconder?
Second.
Thank you, Director McNabb. Any further comments?
I have one more comment.
Go ahead.
It's been identified as well that the Sprout Lake Landing has an access from the lake to get over to the Della's Cafe, and it sort of spits people out in between the bridge across Weiner Creek and the road. So it's not by the road and it's not by the bridge, it's in the middle of the road. So it is a hazard. So I don't know if we could put some kind of a comment on there, because that is the way that they're directing traffic, which would run alongside of this new mini golf around it, and then up the side of the hotel and out onto the road. So just wondered if there was anything staff could recommend that we could actually add into this before we approve it. Thanks.
Thoughts, Mike?
I'm not sure. I want to make sure I understood the question. So in relation to the washrooms would be located, by the mini golf, so that people would not have to cross the road, and then there would be adequate. The parking and stuff would be on this side of the road. So the design would discourage people from using the crosswalk and crossing the road as much as possible. But I may not have understood the question.
Yeah. I don't think we can really actually tie this in, but it's just that the pathway from the water is being directed around the mini golf. And I'm sure that they're going to want people to go over to their cafe and have a pop or whatever while they're there at their facilities. So I'm not sure how we could ever tie it in, but thought maybe staff might be able to suggest something that would help, because this is a hazard in the community. Thanks.
Okay. Any further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? This is EA directors only as well. Okay, motion carried. Okay, so that brings us to item B, which is rezoning application RE18010 Beaver Creek. Mike, just quick overview.
Yeah, so this is a bylaw that's being presented for the board to consider adopting. The public hearing was held on March 2nd. It is a rezoning application to rezone a property which is currently A1 to RA2 to facilitate a subdivision, and staff recommends that the board adopt the bylaw.
Director McNabb.
As Chair Jack, I would move that the Alberta Clayoquot Regional District Zoning Atlas Amendment Bylaw P1381 be adopted.
Thank you, Director Shannon. I assume that's a second. Yeah. Any further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion carried. Okay, that brings us to item C. It is a OCP amendment and rezoning application for Beaver Creek, RE19007. 007. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, again, so this is another rezoning application. It has an accompanying OCP amendment. The public hearing was also held on March 2nd, and all the conditions of subdivision have been met, and we recommend that the board adopt the bylaw, or the two bylaws.
Yeah, and there are two motions there, Director McNabb.
I would move that the Beaver Creek Official Community Plan Amendment Bylaw 1P1401 be adopted.
Thank you, Director Shannon. Further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion carried.
And I would move that the regional district, why is it worded that way? When it's Alberta Clayoquot Regional District.
So it's weird for zoning atlases because it was the zoning atlas laws were created ages ago. They still use this wording.
Okay.
Yeah.
All righty. I'd move that the Regional District of Alberta Clayoquot Zoning Atlas Amendment Bylaw P1402 be adopted.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Roberts. Further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion carried. So many cats. Okay, so motion adopted. That brings us to reports, of which there are none. No unfinished business. That brings us to the Director Cole with an update on the Modi letter from the District of Ucluelet. And Director Cole is gone. I'm wondering then if we have a question period. Maybe Dave, if you have any questions. You don't have to come up with any if you don't have any, but we're just waiting for Director Cole now.
I don't, but thanks for the invite.
Okay. Is there anyone else for questions? What's your cat's name? Go ahead.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, we did make one change for allowing public input. We set up an email address, which I monitor, and we've had no comments or questions from the public for
Yeah,
today.
that's responses or response at ACRD?
Yeah,
like
if they had any questions or input into this agenda, we set up an email address called responses@acrd.bc.ca.
Mm-hmm.
And just to report that we have not received any, I have not received any emails for the board today from the public.
Okay. Yeah, I would note that I loaded up the link to the live stream on YouTube, and it was only a Bamfield resident who had asked whether or not it was going forward, and I just replied saying we're having difficulties with that, and I apologize.
Yes, and we'll be able to upload this meeting right after we're done here. So, and we'll have it corrected for next meeting to be live streamed correctly.
Yeah, And that's fine. I understand it can be difficult to set up the streaming the first time, but once it gets going, it's just all easy, one click, go. So, but yeah, the resident was Keith Whiten. So, hi. Okay. So, Director Cole, thanks for coming back quickly. We're just killing time. So if you could quickly take us through the letter from the District of Ucluelet to the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure.
Thank you so much. Yes, so apparently I see that it has just been shipped out as well to the to MOT, sorry, 1 second here, because I did just get to the minister. So you all, I think everybody has a copy of it now. It's just from the mayor to the MOT with regards to lack of communication about how they were starting up and how we got the information about the change of closure schedules, the same as any other human or any citizen, that there was no conversation or any heads up. And there's also complaints about them being shut down and then bringing in that it was never communicated to us about startup, and that the feeling here is that it's not necessarily, as long as the road is working right now, if we're trying to focus on keeping our social distancing and keeping our communities safe and seemingly COVID free at the moment, that introducing out of town crew that have been at home in other places then back into our community to resume work on something, whether that was essential or not. I know that this letter's gone out now today and it was copied on. Cal, you'll have it. Josie, you'll have it. Anybody on the West Coast, all of our First Nations communities has been CC'd on it, and it's from Mako to the minister. One thing that is a big ask right now, he's been trying to get those big overhead signs, those expensive big overhead signs that talk about the road closures, that before the road closures, it was talking about water ponding. I remember not knowing what the word ponding was. I mean, it makes sense now when you think about it, but I'd never read it. So anyways, where you see that information, that perhaps those signs would be better used, asking people to, stay at home right now and visit us in the near future when everybody feels safer to do so. There's still a feeling in our communities, and we have a couple instances where our bylaw officers run into people out on West Main, groups of people isolating there together, but then still coming into the community, and of course getting services and getting groceries, etc. And just some people actually that still seem unaware of that now's not the time to come surfing, or Cal, I know up in Salmon Beach there was concern about people coming up there from Tofino, etc. And I guess I just feel as though anything that we could do in anybody's control as far as signage and keeping the information sort of in everybody's face in the forefront as far as people coming here. And that's just sort of on top of the majority of what that letter to the MOT is. It also has to do with the stump burning that's taking place, even though there's the provincial in place. So it's just for your information. Sorry it's so late. I just got it, and then since we've been talking, it's just gone out. So that's it.
Okay. Thank you for that report. Are there any other comments on that? I just had the one, if we do convince them to change the overhead displays, it can just be hashtag visit Tofino later and hashtag heaven can wait. so. Okay, so with that in mind, that brings us back to question period, but Wendy has stated that there's no one emailing anything from responses at acrd.bc.ca. I think Dave already said he doesn't have any questions. That brings us to a recess. With the recess in mind, I'm wondering, should we have a bio break before we get to the district, or do you think it's just okay for people to get up and go to the washroom? Specifically me, Director Osborne. So
I'm easy. I don't think that the hospital board district meeting is going to take very long, so we could take a little break before moving in camera after that.
Okay, so let's as a part of the recess motion, perhaps we can come back in 5 minutes. Stay connected though, and then we'll get back to the.
Did you mean have a break now and then do the hospital board meeting, or have the hospital board meeting and then do?
And then break?
Yeah.
That might be better. Let's do that instead. Okay. Sorry about that. So can we get a motion to recess the meeting?
So
go ahead.
I would move to recess the regular meeting of the Board of Directors in order to conduct the Regional Hospital District meeting.
Second. Oh.
Thank you, Director Johnson. All those in favor? Motion carried.
Okay, then I will call our Alberni-Clayoquot Regional Hospital District Board of Directors meeting to order, and it is 3:10 p.m. and recognize that we are conducting our business today all across the Natolis territories. And ask for a motion, please, first to approve the agenda.
So moved.
So, thank you. Sorry, who moved?
I'll move it.
Thank you. Director Shannon, and seconded by Director Jack. Okay, is anybody opposed to approving the agenda? Okay, seeing none, then I'll declare the motion approved. Just one small little thing I wanted to try is when you do move in second, could you say your name when you speak? And I think that will actually make things a lot more clear for Wendy and for myself as well. Okay, so then we have the Board of Directors meeting minutes that were held March 11th. Can we have a motion to adopt?
Motion to adopt the minutes, John.
Thank you, Director McNabb, seconded by
Penny.
Thank you.
Second.
Point of order. I don't know if we voted on the agenda. Did we?
We did.
We did?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Reverse vote.
I declared the motion carried. All right. Any errors or omissions from the meeting minutes from March 11th? Okay. Seeing none, does anybody oppose the carrying of the minutes? Adoption of the minutes? No? Okay. All in favor then, and the motion is carried. And then we have the minutes special Board of Directors meeting that was held on March 31st for adoption.
Move adoption, John.
Thank you. Director McNabb moves, seconded
John,
by.
second.
Thank you, Director Jack. Any errors or omissions in these meeting minutes? Okay, seeing none, does anybody oppose the motion to adopt the minutes? Seeing none, then I'll approve the motion and I'll declare the motion approved. We'll just go straight into reports. So we'll just do our regular list and we'll start off with Director Beckett and the Banfield Health Center.
No report, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you, Director Beckett. Anything from the Alberni-Clayoquot Continuing Care Society? Director McNabb.
Yes, Madam Chair. Unfortunately, I have a very sad report. During the last week, we lost one of our directors, a younger director, somebody I've known for about 50 years, Adrian Bogard, and she passed away, I believe it was Thursday of last week. So it was not COVID related, but a cancer issue. And she was selected as Volunteer of the Year in 2018. She's a very active individual in a lot of different things in the community, and really sad. Very effective director and a wonderful person. So I just like to report that. And as far as the Alberni-Clayoquot Continuing Care Society and Fir Park and Echo, they haven't released any specific information to the Board of Directors with regards to how things are actually being maintained within the facilities. I think that that's probably a good thing, because if there was issues, we'd be hearing about it. So I know that it is a trying time, and I've got my special tie on here so that we're giving some love to the individuals that are forefront in all of this. And I did attend the first responders parade at our local hospital on Sunday at 7 o'clock. And it's great to see the community come out to support these individuals that are putting themselves in harm's way to make sure the community is safe. So that's it.
Thank you very much, and sorry for your loss. That's terrible news. The West Coast Native Healthcare Society, any report from Director Cote?
Thank you. Just that Rainbow Gardens is in lockdown and doing well as far as I know. Don't hear much coming out of any responses, so that's good news.
Great.
Thanks.
Thank you. For the Tofino General Hospital, I can tell you COVID related things are going well, and our hospital staff, who the chief physician I'm in regular contact with, are feeling quite positive and really commend our community for the amount of support that they've shown for the healthcare staff, not only with meals and that kind of thing, but also by actually staying away. And hearing from a few of the staff there that things that are slow at the hospital is kind of a good thing in a weird way, because it means that people are understanding that they can't use the hospital as a primary care center right now. And they are truly keeping the only emergencies as their reason for visiting the hospital. Our hospital has a trailer set up outside for screening and for dealing with people with respiratory and non-respiratory issues before they enter the actual hospital. And yeah, I think that's probably all I have to say. What about you, Director Cole? Anything to add?
I'll just add, just most recently, it's happening even right now, EMBC and Kerry Marshall and a group of people are just talking about the personal protective equipment on the West Coast, in BC, obviously globally. Currently, because of our low call volume, we are still fine. The shortage is with the marathon in mind, or if things actually escalate here. You already mentioned the new CCAN out front there. So even though activity is lower and all organized in the hospital, they still have made a point of making sure that they're not just like the fact that the trailer is up is anticipating that we still may not be as fortunate as we are right now. And I can tell you that the ambulance has gone to Tofino 5 times when in a period of time where we'd normally go 25 times. And that is for including all of our catchment, which is a large portion of our coastal areas, sea and our First Nations communities. So things are quiet, and my largest concern right now is just the distancing fatigue and sort of the next phase we go into. And fortunately, there are working groups that are happening all over the place talking about the mental health component that comes into play and how people aren't used to doing this, especially for long periods of time, and what comes next. But the hospital, we're all really happy. Healthcare on the West Coast, we're doing really fabulously.
Thank you, Director Cole. Director Roberts?
Yes. If I may make a comment, I noticed last night on the news that Canadian Tire has cases of PPE in the form of masks, and recommendation is that if you're able to buy one, to contribute it to the local hospitals and or other healthcare workers.
Thank you.
So
I don't want to, sorry to interrupt you. I just don't want to get too far down. We're going to stay focused on our hospital district board meeting here and not get too far down the specifics. But anything else to add about the West Coast from any other directors? Okay, thanks everybody. The Alberni Clayoquot Health Network, Director Cote.
Just to report that our health coordinator, Marcy DeWitt, is now part of our emergency operations team. She meets with the policy group. So she's a wonderful asset to us, and can't say enough as to, I think, what her abilities will be to help us in this situation, connecting communities and services, and she can identify and work with staff on many issues, I think. So kudos to her for being there for us at this time. We do have another meeting next Wednesday for the Health Network. We had one last month. That was my first Zoom meeting. It worked very well. We had quite a few participants from the table of partners, anyone is welcome to listen in if they want to. So if you think you have something that you'd like to add to the health network, please let staff know, and they'll try and hook you up.
Great.
Just one more note on a personal side too, sort of. Sprout Lake Fire Department is also part of the Saturday night parade by the hospital. And it's really good to see that our community is letting those first line providers know that we all care, and the fire departments are there also. They've been asked not to have their first line first responders go out to calls respiratory related, and I believe the ambulance is filling in there. So that's my report. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Okay, and then last but certainly not least, West Coast General Director Minions, do you want to make any comments?
Sure, thank you. Not a lot to add. We are seeing some very similar trends as to what Tofino is seeing. Certainly reduction in usage of the emergency room. People are definitely finding other ways to see a doctor, and I think it's really interesting to see people adapt and our healthcare systems adapt during this time. So I think there'll definitely be some big lessons learned at the end of this in a good way for how we can move forward with easing pressure on a more ongoing basis in our emergency rooms and other healthcare facilities. I think that's all I'll say for today. Yeah, very similar to what's going on in Tofino locally.
Great, thank you. Anybody else from the Valley? Okay, well, thank you, everybody. Any reports that are missed? No. All right, that's that then.
Motion to adjourn, John.
Second, Penny.
Director Jack and Director Cote. All in favor of adjourning? Yes, thank you. Motion carried. Thank you. Back to you, Director Jack. You want to take a very short break and then we'll